Rookie of the Year awards have been given out, and teams have decided who's being protected from the Rule 5 draft. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode is made possible by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Rookie of the Year awards were given out earlier this week, and for, I think, like the 7th time ever, both of them were unanimous winners. We talked about this, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday's show. It was going to be Gunnar, Henderson, and Corbin, Carroll, and that is, in fact, who has won. But there's some additional conversation here about, one, who got down ballot votes and what effect that may have, and then the prospect promotion incentive, how that works, and what that means for the Orioles and the Diamondbacks for getting a Rookie of the Year. So, in the National League, Corbin Carroll, unanimous winner, gets all 30 first place votes. Reminder, it is 30 votes. It is 2 writers from each city in the National League who are members of the Baseball Writers Association of America. So, 30 votes to Corbin Carroll, unanimous. Kodai Senga of the Mets gets 22 of 30 second place votes, and he's only on 27 ballots. So three writers don't put him on there at all. Most notably is Keith Law of The Athletic. He's been pretty insistent in the past that the former Japanese professionals who come over and enter MLB should not be eligible for this award. We've talked about that in a previous show about you should have some sort of separate award there. And then, honestly, I think you should have some sort of separate award for pitchers as well. It turns out both of these runners-up were pitchers, Kodai Senga of the Mets, and then in the American League, Tanner Bibee of the Cleveland Guardians. So, looking at the down ballot results, James Outman of the Dodgers is in third place, 20 total points. It was 5 points per first place vote, 3 points per second vote, and 1 point per third place vote. Nolan Jones of the Rockies came in fourth place. He had 2 second place votes and 11 third place votes. And then Matt McClain of the Reds came in fifth with 5 total points. After that, Spencer Steer had 4 points, and then 3 different players all got a third place vote. Yuri Perez, Ellie De La Cruz, and Patrick Bailey. Over on the American League side, again, obviously, Gunnar, Henderson of the Orioles, Tanner Bibee, we mentioned that, 20 of 30 second place votes. He was on 27 total ballots as well. Tristan Cassis comes in 25 points. He's in third place. Josh Young of the Rangers, fourth place with 16 points. And that was the one where if he didn't get hurt and didn't lose a significant amount of time this year, you absolutely could have seen him be higher up on this ballot than fourth place. Yanye Diaz gets 3 third place votes and 1 second place vote. They're supposed to be impartial. That second place vote was from the Houston writer of the BBWAA. Not saying it was incorrect, just making an observation. And then after that, Matsutake Yoshida, 3 points. Edward Julian, 2 points. Anthony Volpe, 1 point. So, interesting point totals there. Of note, Tanner Bibee will earn a year of service time because he finished number 1 or number 2 in Rookie of the Year voting. Obviously, Kodai Senga is on a standard contract. He will not receive that because he signed as a free agent, but Tanner Bibee is now 1 year closer to getting to free agency, and because of the way the Guardians work, potentially leaving Cleveland in free agency unless they do an early career extension for him. But with the prospect promotion incentive, both of these guys qualify for the prospect promotion incentive. So this will be the second and third picks given out under the PPI program. Michael Harris, the second, winning Rookie of the Year for the Atlanta Braves. He did not qualify for the prospect promotion incentive. He did not appear on at least 2 of the 3 preseason top 100 prospect rankings, Baseball America, ESPN, MLB Pipeline. So he did not get the Atlanta Braves a draft pick in 2022, but Julio Rodriguez did get one for the Seattle Mariners. We'll get to that in a second. So this is now the Baltimore Orioles and the Arizona Diamondbacks will both get a pick at the end of the first round as the prospect promotion incentive. We don't have the exact spots where these will be because there will be player or draft picks that get moved, right? If you were over a certain threshold level of the competitive balance tax, your draft pick can get moved back 10 spots. If you sign certain qualifying offer free agents with certain financial penalties for being into the CBT, your draft pick could get moved back as well. And so because of that, we don't have the exact spots for these, but as of now, we can act as if they're number 31 and number 32. I also believe, but have not gotten it confirmed, that the order that those would go in, Baltimore would receive theirs before Arizona, because in the draft order, Baltimore is drafting before Arizona because of postseason finish. So I believe, and as of now, we'll say 31st and 32nd until we know, I believe Baltimore would get 31, Arizona would get 32. I mentioned Seattle got one last year and what they did with that. So Seattle ended up having 3 first-round picks because they had their number 22 overall, they had PPI pick number 29, and a competitive balance pick number 30. And so what Seattle did with their extra draft capital last year, we did a whole segment as to what they could have done, and we spent some time after the draft talking about them. They went out and they got 3 prepsters with their 3 picks. They had to go over slot on 2 of those, shortstop Colt Emerson at 22, and outfielder Johnny Farmello at 29. They took shortstop Ty Pete at 30 and actually were able to get him a little under slot. But to make sure and to be safe, in the second round, they took a Ben Williamson, college senior, saved about $800,000 from his slot there. And when it looked like they ended up having extra money left after signing Pete, they were able to go over slot by about double, by about $700,000 to sign prep outfielder Aiden Smith in the 4th round. So they really were able to take multiple shots at high bonus prep talent in the draft with this extra money. Now, the Orioles and Diamondbacks, if you look at the values from last year for 31st and 32nd, 31st was about $2.67 million. And 32 was about 2.60 or 2.61 million. So both of these teams will have additional money in their bonus pool, and it'll be curious to see how they use that and what happens there. And obviously, we'll do more drafts as we get closer. Once we get past some free agency and we know which picks are getting moved, we'll probably do a little bit deeper in depth as to what these teams can do with their multiple picks in the first round. Be looking for that coming up in however long it takes to get these free agents signed, a couple of weeks, I guess. In just a minute, let's talk about the Rule 5 draft protection deadline that passed on Tuesday. Let's look at who was protected, who was not, and what might be coming in the December Rule 5 draft. We'll do that next right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can take advantage of the NFL season and some of the chaos going on right now in it with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is incredibly easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started in this NFL season. Get the learning curve around past you by the time we get to the holidays. You're stuck in the house with family. Football is on because it always has to be on. Have a rooting interest in these games with the help of FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Okay, so looking at the Rule 5 protection deadline, reminder here what this was and how it works is you had to, and by you, MLB teams, had until 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday the 14th to set their 40-man rosters. Any Rule 5 eligible player who was not put on the 40-man roster is available for the Rule 5 draft in December. It's December 6th during the winter meetings. Now, reminder as to eligibility. It's based on how old you were when you got your initial contract. If you signed your initial contract at age 18 or younger, it's after 5 seasons, you're Rule 5 eligible. If you sign the contract at age 19 or older, it's 4 seasons. So it's 2019's prepsters or international free agents, 2020's college guys or older prepsters who are Rule 5 eligible this year. Looking at the rosters and who was protected, I thought about doing a National League, American League thing. We'll just do alphabetical order. If you're looking for a specific team, obviously, makes it a little bit easier to find that team. So the Arizona Diamondbacks had 6 candidates to be protected. The only one that was protected was lefty Blake Walston. Back half of the top 30, something where good velocity for a lefty on a fastball, can run it up to 95, has a good curveball, but has struggled with consistency into starts, has struggled with the length of his outings. Made it to AAA last year. He was a first rounder in 2018. Made it to AAA last year. You still might see him in 2024. So first time eligible, and he was protected. But everybody else, including outfielder Christian Robinson, who used to be a top prospect before he missed multiple seasons due to legal issues, he was not protected. This is a proximity thing. He is so far away from the majors that the odds are he's not going to be selected by a team. The Atlanta Braves had 4 first-time eligibles, including lefty pitcher Luis Diavilla and outfielder Jesse Franklin, the only draftee of theirs from that 2020 draft to not make the majors yet. That's the Spencer Strider draft. Also had Jared Schuster in it, and Jesse Franklin came out of Michigan there. They did not protect any of those guys. Instead, they waived Yanni Chirinos, or designated him for assignment, to claim Penn Murphy off of waivers from the Mets. He had been claimed off of waivers by the Mariners. The guy had Tommy John last year, had a really good sweeper, relatively slower fastball, but really good sweeper, a sidearm thing, so looked really funky, hard to hit it. Had Tommy John, I want to say it was earlier in the summer, should be back sometime in 2024, but they took him rather than protecting any of their prospects. Baltimore Orioles only had Hudson Haskin, second round pick in 2020. Lot of injuries. He was in AAA, but only got 30-something games. Had a hamstring injury, had hip surgery, and so he was the only guy that was there. They did not protect him. They're a team that has, we've talked about this before, they have a ton of upper-level prospects who, for the most part, all have to be on the 40-man roster. This felt like them not having the room. I could see an organization that is entirely planning on losing in 24 and rebuilding, retooling, whatever you want to call it. Somebody like maybe Washington going out and taking Hudson Haskin and giving him a chance at the major league level. But again, he really hasn't spent a lot of time even at AAA because of injury. The Boston Red Sox had 6 different guys to be protected. The only 2 they protected were right-hand pitchers, Winkelman Gonzalez and Luis Perales. We talked about both of these guys when we did our Red Sox show a couple weeks ago. Perales, really good stuff, right? Fastball, he can run it up to 97. It has a slider, has a changeup. Good, just pure good stuff. And then Gonzalez made it all the way to AA, had an ERA under 4 and 170 strikeouts in his just over 100 innings. combination of a guy with really good stuff, a guy with good results that is closer to the majors where you could see a team trying to make the jump and keep him. The Chicago Cubs had four guys to be, four ranked prospects, first-time protection. They protected four guys, but two of those ranked prospects did not get protected. They protected shortstop Luis Vasquez, which one breakout this year, batted like 270, really good defense. He's just a little bit younger. They also protected a bunch of pitchers. Porter Hodge, who we talked about in the third segment of Monday's show, righty Michael Arias, and lefty Baylor Horn. So, Hodge, AA. Arias converted from, I think, shortstop to pitching, so hasn't gotten out of the low minors, but just can run it up to 98, 99. And then Bailey Horn, a guy that you could see in 2024. He was in AAA most of the year last year. Lefty who's got a bunch of stuff out of a funky delivery, fastball, slider, curveball, but just hasn't thrown a ton of strikes. So protected those guys because you could see two of them at least in Horn and Hodge as soon as next season. The Chicago White Sox had four guys to protect. They protected lefty Jake Eder, who they got via trade, as well as righty Christian Mina. So Mina was something where in the AA Southern League, struggled with that baseball sometimes, the change into the baseball, had some good months, had some bad months, but the stuff is good. Eder looked really good before Tommy John, so they've protected him, and they're hoping he comes back. Cincinnati Reds, Rhys Hines was protected. That's the big name there. Also, outfielder Jacob Hurtbise and righty Christian Roa. Again, Hines is the big one here. 2020 second rounder, tons of power, lots of strikeouts. He was a position change guy moving to the outfield, but I've seen the arm. It's a huge arm. He can run well, playing a lot of right field. Something where having to switch positions set him back a little bit, but he is still a promising major leaguer, so I can see why they wanted to protect him. The Cleveland Guardians had quite a few guys to protect. They added two, Jonathan Rodriguez and Daniel Espino. And to do that, also a non-rated prospect in righty Cade Smith. To protect those guys, one of the moves they made was non-tendering Cal Quantrill. They went ahead and EFA'd Cal Quantrill. So another piece of that rotation that is now missing for 2024. He struggled for a lot last year, but in the month of September, I want to say he ripped off like 6 starts with an ERA under 2.5. So somebody's going to go out and get him. I think he was going to make like $7 million in arbitration, a little bit more than they wanted to pay, but a good pitcher that is available out there. The Colorado Rockies had a couple slam dunks here. Adel Amador, their number 1 prospect. Yanquiel Fernandez, their number 2 prospect. Both of these guys were no doubt need to get protected. They got protected. They also added some non-rated prospects, Angel Chiavelli and Juan Meja, who we just saw in the Arizona Fall League. Fastball runs up to 97, has a good sweeper, was in AA Hartford with the Yard Goats for most of the year, could be a reliever at the major league level in 2024. Side note here, you typically see guys, relievers taken in the Rule 5 draft simply because it's easier to have that guy stick at the major league level all season than it is a starting pitcher to stick at the major league level all season. Usually if a starter is good enough to be taken in the Rule 5 draft, they probably can't stick at the major league level all year, but a reliever, it's a little bit easier to have their 2 pitches and their one inning outings work at the major league level. The Detroit Tigers added a couple guys, Wilmer Flores, one of their top pitching prospects, Dylan Dingler, their top catching prospect, and Kiter Montero. Despite the stats, was a good decision. Starter, made it to AAA, has some good stuff. They think he can move into relief as soon as next season, but if they want to keep developing him as a starter, they had to keep him in the organization. And again, his stuff was good enough where he could have been a reliever as soon as this upcoming season, so they had to protect him. In just a minute, we're going to start off with the Houston Astros and talk about the rest of the major leagues and what they did with the Rule 5 decisions. We'll do that next right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. Welcome back to Locked On MLB Prospects, looking at the 40-man roster protection decisions and what teams made what. The Houston Astros were an interesting one because they had 8 guys to protect, including some guys that we've spoken highly of. Outfielder Justin Durden, outfielder Colin Barber. The only guy of the 8 first-time protectees that they actually protected was outfielder Kennedy Corona. Was named a Gold Glove winner. He spent most of the time in Double-A Corpus Christi this year, but batted .251, had 20-plus home runs, had 32 stolen bases, and so obviously showed he has defense, he has some speed, he has some power, and he played long enough in Double-A that you can probably send him to Triple-A to start the year next year, so he can be upper minors depth in the outfield, and then potentially as soon as the end of the season could be in the mix as a 4th outfielder in Houston. The Kansas City Royals protected 2 of their guys, outfielder Tyler Gentry, as well as right-hand pitcher Will Klein. Of note, one of the 3 first-rounders that was eligible, or former first-rounders that was eligible and didn't get protected, was Asa Lacy. Something where did not pitch at all in 2023. He had a back injury that shut him down in 22, and he missed the entire year this year. He was the number 4 pick in the 2020 draft. It's the highest draft pick to go unprotected in the Rule 5 or in the 40-man roster decision and the Rule 5 draft since 2016. The Rockies' number 4 overall pick, Riley Pint, that decision was made 4 years ago, and they did not protect him either. So it's only since 2012, only 9 top 10 picks have not been protected in their first year of eligibility. Asa Lacy is the 9th of the 9, and again, the highest since we saw the number 4 overall pick in 2016. The record is the Marlins' 2nd overall pick in 2014. Righty Tyler Kolek was not protected. So interesting note there. Los Angeles Angels had 3 guys to be protected. The only one they protected was righty Jack Kochanowicz, 6'7", good velocity, things like that, but not a lot of deception. Didn't have a ton of movement with his pitches. Something where he's adjusted his mechanics, adjusted his pitch mix, throws a sinker now. Really a ground ball guy. Didn't do that well as a starter in Rocket City, Double-A, Southern League, that's why it's there. But they've talked about moving him to relief, and if they do, I think you could see him in Los Angeles as soon as the second half of next year. The other Los Angeles team, the Dodgers, had 5 guys to be protected. They protected righty Nick Frasso, one of their top 5 pitching prospects, and righty Landon Knack, one of their top 10 pitching prospects. Both those guys made it to Double-A. Last year, I actually have Frasso in fantasy, something where the fastball is so incredibly good. Still not sure if he's going to be a starter or reliever, but a fantastic fastball. And so either way, Knack is probably going to be in the rotation next year. Frasso has a chance, if he's not in the rotation, to be an impact reliever. Either way, feel really good about that. The Marlins, another team that had a giant list of first-time eligibles. The 2 they protected was outfielder Victor Mesa Jr., not to be confused with his brother, outfielder Victor Mesa, and right-hand pitcher Anthony Maldonado. Maldonado, 25-year-old, was at Triple-A Jacksonville for the entire year. He was a reliever there. Very good. 46 innings, 1.74 ERA, 71 strikeouts in those 46 innings. Opposing batting average allowed of 148. So cutter, slider guy, you're probably going to see him in the majors next year. He may even break spring training as a reliever in the bullpen for Miami. And then Victor Mesa, first year at Double-A. Power's okay, but the defense is good. The arm is good. He's got some speed. If he could not strike out as much, you're looking at a guy who could contribute as a 4th outfielder, maybe something more if he continues to develop. Milwaukee Brewers, Jefferson Cuero. We talked about he's an odd fit for the Brewers organization, but easy decision. One of their best prospects, could be a trade piece if they decide they don't need him at the major league level. Now they have William Contreras. We'll see what happens. They also protected right-hand pitcher Bradley Blaylock. They got him at the trade deadline when they sent Luis Urias, the infield utility guy, to the Boston Red Sox. And then they made a trade. They traded 2 of their Rule 5 eligible prospects, and Hendry Mendez and Robert Moore, to the Phillies to get second baseman Oliver Dunn, who we just saw, I believe we just saw him in the AFL, but either way, they went and got him, added him to the 40-man roster as well. The Minnesota Twins also had a couple other guys to be protected here. They went and they added 4 total to their roster. So they added catcher Yair Camargo, shortstop Junior Severino. That happened, I think, a week or 2 ago. And then they added infield, outfield utility guy Austin Martin, former first-round pick that they got from the Blue Jays when they traded Jose Barrios, and outfielder Emmanuel Rodriguez, who we've talked about on this show a lot. He's got really good power, and he has almost too much patience at the plate, and he just has to swing more. We've talked about him on the show a few times now, including taking credit for fixing him, if you remember. The Yankees had about 6 guys that were first-time eligible to be protected. They added 2 catchers, Carlos Narvaez, who is another defensive-oriented catcher. A lot of their catchers seem to be like that. We've talked about Ben Rice on this show, things like that. I'm sorry. Narvaez is one of the few defensive-oriented catchers. Most of their catchers seem to be offensive-oriented guys like Ben Rice, like Austin Wells. Augustin Ramirez, the other catcher that was protected, is in that same boat of an offensive first catcher who has struggled defensively. They also added righty Clayton Beeter. He is the pitcher they got from the Dodgers when they traded Joey Gallo. Split time between high A and double A, but proximity as well as his stuff, he's probably close enough where they had to go ahead and protect him. More New York teams, the Mets added outfielder Alex Ramirez. And that was it. Right-hand pitcher Coleman Crowe was a guy I wasn't sure about. They got him via trade, but they did not add him. The Oakland A's, another team that had 8 guys that were first-time protectors. They added 4. Outfielder Lazaro Armenteros, lefty Brady Brasso, and righty Royber Salinas, who we did single out in that show, was part of one of the trades with Atlanta, as well as infielder Darrell Hernaiz. For the Philadelphia Phillies, they had 2 guys that were first-time eligibles. They did not protect anybody. So something where, obviously, pretty full 40-man roster, just came out of the postseason. They've got some big questions that they're trying to figure out as far as starting pitching, things like that. Did not protect anybody. Pittsburgh Pirates protected 2 players out of the 7 they had. Sung-Chae Sheng, a shortstop, one of their best position players. Really good defense, played in both high A and double A, has some good contact, has good speed, hasn't hit for a ton of power, but still looks really good. And then righty Braxton Ashcraft had Tommy John surgery, came back last year, spent time in high A and double A. Big thing here is going to be how quickly can you ramp him up back into a normal workload because he missed a year and a half with Tommy John. San Diego Padres saved exactly 1 guy, right-hand pitcher Jairo Iarte. He is the exact type of player that is going to get picked in the Rule 5 draft if you don't protect him. Fastball runs up to the high 90s. He's got a power slider in the high 80s. And then somewhat of a changeup, but the exact type of guy that a team can grab and throw in their bullpen for a season, see if he can make it work because the stuff is so good. Giants protected 3 guys. One of them a non-ranked prospect in Kai Win Tang, but they also protected 2 other pitchers, righty Trevor McDonald and lefty Eric Miller. Tang, ton of strikeouts, also a ton of walks in the minors. Miller was part of a trade. They wanted to keep him. And then McDonald is a guy that fastball sits in the mid-90s. 2 different, distinct breaking balls, both of them good. Kind of the reason you kept him there. Seattle Mariners protected exactly 1 player, outfielder Zach DeLoach, 2020 second rounder to Texas A&M. Hit for a bunch of home runs, like a career high, like 20-something home runs this year, bunch of RBIs. Just a barrel machine in AAA, so close enough to the bigs where they thought he could be used. St. Louis Cardinals protect 3 players, Adam Kloffenstein, Sam Roberse, and Pedro Paje, the catcher. Both the 2 pitchers were both trade acquisitions, so it makes sense that we're going to keep them. Tampa Bay Rays did not have a giant crunch this year. They only had 7 players. They protected 3 of those. 2 of them are righty pitchers. The position player is Austin Shenton, corner infielder guy, first base, third base. He was in Double-A. Was not protected last year because he was injured most of the season, but had a good year, batted .304, .423, .584. One of my favorite prospects to watch on that Double-A Montgomery team. Made it to Triple-A before the end of the year, so they had to protect him there. Texas Rangers protected 4 players, including, to nobody's surprise, infielder Justin Foscue. Outside of that, bunch of pitchers. Mark Church, Jose Corniel, Antoine Kelly. Big fan of Foscue, and then just really good hitter. Got to figure out where he's going to play, though, because obviously, bunch of guys on this team. Toronto Blue Jays protected 2 guys. Mitch White, who was an MLB veteran, they had DFA'd him off the 40-man roster back in August, but they put him back now because they want to keep him in the bullpen. And then Adam Macko. He was the guy that they got in the Teoscar Hernandez trade end of last season or early this season. Had 20 starts in high A. Really talented player, 4-pitch mix, but just has to get more time. Had dealt with some injury issues. And then the Washington Nationals, 4 players protected, including lefty DJ Hers, righty Cole Henry, lefty Mitchell Parker, and righty Zachary Brzezky. Brzykcy. You tell me how to say that. But surprisingly, shortstop Kevin Made was not protected. Interested to see what happens there. Does any team try to take him maybe in the minor league portion and use him somewhere? Fantastic week this week. Ran a little long today. Sorry about that. In the meantime, if you have questions for Monday's mailbag, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. All the rest of the ways to get us in the episode description in the show notes. Until tomorrow's show, remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.